All right, so there I am, coding away on my ultra sophisticated Web3 application, you know, really the bleeding edge stuff. And then all of a sudden, boom, silence. My T480 that I bought off a meth head in Melbourne 3 or 4 years ago, which I've built businesses on, the quintessential Melbourne startup business experience / ThinkPad / Linux, it's dead. Okay guys, we don't need to get rid of this T480. In fact, you can buy one if you don't have one off the internet for less than $100. And the fact is that the 8th generation processors that these machines came with at the time were in fact much better than a lot of the modern GPUs, especially with the 96 watt hour battery that I'm going to upgrade this machine to. I'm going to show you how to do that. I'm also going to show you how to upgrade the trackpad to a glass trackpad from the X1 Extreme. We're going to upgrade the keyboard. We're going to, as I mentioned, upgrade the batteries. I'm going to show you the internal thermals. We're going to improve the thermals with a fan with 2 heat pipes from a unit which had the dedicated GPU. And I'll show you how to upgrade the SSD. We're going to take the entire motherboard, we're going to tear down the entire unit, and then we're going to rebuild it from scratch with a new palm rest, a new case and everything. So join me and let's make this ThinkPad great again. Alright, so this is the machine that's dead, and we'll get into that in a minute. But first, let's have a look at all of the bits that we purchased. All right, so here. All right, so the first thing, obviously, the old machine had pretty poor battery life. I won't open this for the electrostatic discharge just yet, but if we have a look here, this is a 72 watt hour battery. So that's gonna be one of the batteries. That's an externally replaceable one that you can swap in and swap out. So we've got that. Next, all right, here we have the other internal battery that's 24 watt hours. So that means that we're gonna get about 72 plus 24, about 96 watt hour battery. And obviously when you go on planes, the biggest that you can have in a single machine is 99 watt hours. So it's got to be smaller than 100 watt hours. All right, so this is the CPU cooling fan, as it says on the front here, but let's just have a quick look. All right, the CPU cooling fan, I got the one with the GPU sync. Now in a moment we're going to see that if you have the motherboard with the GPU sync, that's fine. In my case, I'm not doing anything GPU intensive really, and the other thing is that the GPU which was in these units is really only very incrementally better than that internal GPU. So the benefit of having this though is that you've got the GPU heatsink and the, I'll take it out of the packet so we can see it more clearly. The benefit is that you've got the GPU heatsink and then you've got the CPU heatsink. This one is kind of actually left idle, but this will result in lower temperatures in the machine. And so I've done that on purpose. So let's put this one aside. Okay, so I actually ascertained that in the machine there was originally 32 gig of RAM, but one of the RAM sticks had actually died and it was no longer working. How could I ascertain that it was faulty? Well, I put it in another machine and I found that that machine wouldn't boot when one of them, the faulty one, was still installed. So we're going to have, in total, we're going to have 32 gig of RAM. Now the T480, although according to the specs in the documentation it supports 32 gig of RAM, that's because at the time these SODIMM DDR4 RAM sticks only went up to a maximum size of 16 gigabytes. So you've got 2 slots in there. I'll show you in a moment when we open up the laptop. But now they actually manufacture 32 gigs. So you could conceivably have a 64 gig machine But for me, that's overkill. I think 32 is more than enough. All right, next is a palm rest. This might seem like overkill, but I actually purchased a completely new palm rest. I wanted to give this machine a complete makeover, and this was pretty cheap. I'll list the price on the screen, but if we refer to the original unit, we can see that the original unit, it actually had, I'm not sure if you can see this down here, but the palm rest was all cracked here. And so it also looks just worse for wear. I want to give this machine a completely new look and overhaul, and so therefore I've replaced the palm rest. Next up is the bottom case on the laptop. So much in the same way as the palm rest on my existing T480, this is going to be the new chassis that we're going to put everything in, and this is going to make everything super clear with respect to building the T480, because everything in this original laptop over here is going to be transferred in here, except for the components which we are upgrading. Those components, obviously the old ones we'll dispose of, and then the new ones will go in here. All right, next we have a new keyboard. Okay, so I got a new backlit keyboard. People are kind of divided on this. Some people prefer the backlit, some prefer the non-backlit. I get where they're coming from, but we're gonna try it out. You can tell that it's a backlit keyboard because of this down here. Okay, next, the standard trackpad that came in the original T480 unit was actually terrible, and so I've got this one, which is actually a glass trackpad. And this is the one that went, I believe, in the Lenovo X1 Extreme. I'll put the generation up on the screen. This is going to be a significant upgrade over the original one. All right, finally we have the i5. And this is an 8350 motherboard. So this is the new motherboard. It doesn't have the GPU, and we'll see that in a moment, because it's going to have, see here, there would have been the GPU, so it's empty. But here we have the CPU, and so the heatsink where the GPU would have been is going to otherwise just extract more heat from the system. We've got 2 RAM slots. I'll take this out. We've got the WAN slot here. We're going to have down here, we're going to have the SSD. We're going to open up the laptop in a moment. And then here we've got 2 slots for the RAM. We've got the CPU. Okay, so everything's looking pretty good. I'm going to put this aside. All right, just 1 or 2 more things to note. I also upgraded the screen in this laptop some time ago, and I've just put on the screen here so you can see that you can get a much higher resolution on this laptop that is competitive with a lot of modern systems that you would buy, even though this laptop was released back in 2018. All right, so that means we're now ready to open up the original machine. So I'm gonna come over here. T480 is super easy to access, all right? The first thing that you want to do though is you want to remove the battery. So this battery is a 24 watt hour battery, and we're going to replace this one with a 72 watt hour battery. Now we are going to open up the laptop. There's 6 screws that we're concerned with, right? So we've got 2 captive screws, so this one here and this one here. These actually connect through to the keyboard. So when these are loose, or when they haven't been properly screwed in, you'll actually find the keyboard is loose. Then you've got these at each corner of the machine. You've got another one, and here. So let's first remove the captive screws. these aren't going to come out because they're captive, and so you need to unscrew it. You'll hear a click and then they'll be unscrewed. Now I'm just going to move around the laptop. And now these ones will come out. And the thing is, when you do this kind of thing, just be very careful to place all these screws. So I'm going to place these screws because we've got to remember the specific order that we're disassembling this unit, because when it comes later, the screws are kind of important. Now this machine and a lot of other Lenovo old ThinkPads, you might find there's odd screws in there because people might have opened it up many times. Okay, once you've undone all of those screws, there's a few clips, but you should just be able to gently pull it off. Don't force it. If you're forcing it, you might just have to, at the back, just make sure that any plastic clips are correctly taken off. Okay, so now we're inside, and we can see that here, we just do a quick review of everything that we've got. We have the internal hard drive, and as I mentioned, I'd already updated the screen, but I'd already, in the past, replaced the internal hard drive, which was a spinning disk, with this 2.5 inch SATA drive, 500 gigabytes, as you can see. And now the thing is that you can have an NVMe drive in these laptops with an adapter. However, you're restricted to a single PCIe lane, and so you're not necessarily going to get any better performance. I think the fact is it's practically unnoticeable unless you're doing a lot of large data transfers. For my use case, this is sufficient. So although this is considered an upgrade, it's not an upgrade that I'm doing as part of this video. I'm going to be taking this out and I'll put it into the new chassis. And then we have the internal battery that we're going to be replacing. As I mentioned earlier, it's got really poor health. Then we have the 2 RAM slots. So RAM's already been taken out of this. As I mentioned, we only had 1 good stick in the existing machine and the other one had died. Then we got the heat sink, and so this motherboard, which is dead, is a 8250i5, so it's just 1 notch below the one that we're going to be upgrading to, and it's just got the single heat sink. So here we can see the CPU, this is where the GPU would be, and then we're going to remove this heatsink and replace it with the one with the GPU. What else is important here? Probably good to mention, so we've got this machine actually has, so it's got the Wi-Fi card, but it also has a WWAN card, so it's got a SIM slot in these laptops that you can use. This is a 4G one, and I'm going to be transferring that to the new laptop, and that was another upgrade that I made. So we will go through that. But first things first, we're going to remove the battery. That's generally the best thing. And if your motherboard's not dead, well, you can actually go into the BIOS and actually deactivate the battery, but we want to take all of the power out of this system. Now, I'm not too concerned right now because the thing is that this motherboard is dead. But if you're working on a machine where the motherboard isn't dead, then that's going to be something that you want to consider. Another tip for, top tip for young players out there is we have this, this is just a trick that I use. So here I've got different sections. I'm going to fill them in as I go. And for example, we've already taken the outer case screws. So I'm going to place the outer case screws into this section. So I'm going to put it over here. You're not going to be able to see it, but the screws earlier that I used, the 4 screws that I took out, I'm putting on that bit of the paper. So then we don't get confused as we start taking it apart. All right, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take out the internal battery, and people have clearly been into this machine before. So the first thing we're going to do is here, this is where the battery connects to the motherboard. Just going to disconnect that. Now, there's a screw here near the SSD or the storage drive, and there's another one here. In my case, this one was in really bad repair, so I've already removed it before this video, so I'm going to have to chuck this one out and replace it. And then this screw was up, however this one was fine, so just okay. So only 2 screws on that and it's been disconnected, so we can simply lift the battery out. Great. Now, the next thing that we can do, and if you've got a live motherboard and you're concerned with any power being in the system, what you could do at this point, you could just flip it over and you could turn it on. I'm going to remove the CMOS battery. Okay. Next, let's do the WAN card that I mentioned. So this has got an antenna, or I'm gonna take this antenna off, so that disconnects pretty simply. And I'm going to simply remove this. It's only got a single screw. All right, then I'm going to take out the Wi-Fi card. Next, I'm going to take off the heatsink. And from memory, these are also captive screws, so you're going to, we'll find out in a moment, but there's 4 of these. Okay, so now if you've got the external GPU, you might have more, but in our case, we've just got 1, 2, 3, 4. And we just disconnect it here where it's connected. Next, I'm going to disconnect the display over here, all right? So we do that, we can simply lift off this little bracket and just be as gentle as you can. I'm gonna pull it off. So now the screen is disconnected. It's got a little clip there. Now, if you've got the antenna, this runs around the edge of the screen, the bezel, right? And we're going to, in the next step now, we're going to actually just disconnect the screen, take it off entirely. We're going to do that in a moment. Okay, so when it comes to the motherboard, we've got 1 screw here, we've got 1 screw over here. We have a number of screws around here. We've got a screw in the center here, here, and over here, and a couple more over here. So this is important that you document, take photos so you don't lose track. I'm going to start with this. Now, just make sure that you've removed everything. All these little connectors are just gently removed. You don't need to, just make sure this one, for example, just gently tug on it. You don't need to rip it out. Gently fold this, see this keyboard is tight, that's why I changed it. All right, and make sure that we disconnect these from the motherboard. So this keyboard will be able to be removed because of the screws which previously held it in place. All right, so simply pull them off. Okay, and now you should find that if we come back here, that the motherboard, assuming everything has been disconnected, should just lift out just like that. Okay. All right, so we've still got a few more things that we've got to remove. We've got to remove the speakers. We're going to reuse those in the new one, and we've got to remove the hard drive. We also have to remove, this is the trackpad. Now, I've got a new trackpad, so I'm not going to bother to remove that, but if you were to remove that, that would be there. Let's remove these speakers. All right, so this hard drive actually comes with a plastic case, right? But, and it just kind of slots in there and then it gets held in place. And it's got these plastic things at the front. So I'm not going to bother taking that off, but if you wanted to replace your existing drive, then you would need to do that. All right, so then we've still got a handful of things here. So this guy, this is the fingerprint reader. That one was a power button. Okay, so the fingerprint reader is now out, the speakers are out, the power button. Okay, so for the final bit, we just got to take off this screen. Now, the screen, in my case, I've got this, the WWAN SIM card antenna. And so in your case, you may need to just gently remove that, or you may not have it in your model, it depends. Gently remove that. And now we've just got these hinges rather, and we just need to unscrew. So just bend them. So the hinge should shift. And now, assuming that everything is disconnected, we can take off the bottom case, the palm rest. And as you can see, that's the break that I was talking about on the palm rest. So now we can do away with that. Okay, so as I mentioned earlier, I'm actually not going to be replacing the screen. If you did want to, you can just unclip the bezel, and then there's 4 screws. We're not doing that as part of this tutorial because I've done that in the future. So let's now reassemble the device. Just to jump in for a moment, let's have a review of what we've done. We've installed 2 sticks of RAM, we replaced the battery, we put everything back together again, we put the Wi-Fi card, and we put the modem back in the machine, and just wanted to clarify what I was doing earlier. So as I mentioned, this motherboard doesn't have a dedicated GPU. It's just got the internal GPU, and this is the old heatsink, and this has got a single pipe, but as you can see, this one has got a double pipe. So we should see significantly better heat performance on this new. So I plugged it in, and the good news is we can see this ThinkPad light. I'm not sure how clear that is on the camera, but this has lit up, which means that it is getting power. So now I'm going to turn it on. There we go. All right, so it's a little bit difficult to see from the other angle, but here we just want to have a quick look. So we have everything working. We can see that we've got this i5-8350U, which is for the underpowered laptop version, and we've got 32 gig of RAM installed. Just going to test it in a live environment, so the performance might not be indicative of what we expect when we install. I'm going to be installing probably Arch, as I usually do, but I used to like the Cosmic desktop environment, so let's just see what it looks like in this spin. All right, so I can confirm that the trackpad, the new trackpad from the X1 Extreme, is working flawlessly. The pointer is also working. Just to give it a nicer wallpaper. Oh, I see, something like this. It's a bit nicer. And there we have it. We have our T480 and we've got it running. We've upgraded the trackpad, we've upgraded the hard drive, the screen if you chose to do that. We've got a backlit keyboard, 96 watt-hour battery, and it's starting to look pretty good. And I'd like to thank you very much for your time and having a look at this video. Please do subscribe if you enjoy it so I can make more videos, and next we'll do an Arch install and then we'll look at possibly doing a window tiling manager. Thanks.